What's the most unhinged thing you've done after a breakup? Story 1. Not something I did per se, but something my body did to me. I was sick for like 6 months, a year. After my high school boyfriend dumped me, my body reacted really physically to the stress. I would throw up after every meal. Not because I wanted to, or because I was forcing myself to, I just couldn't hold anything down. I would eat lunch and just automatically hit the bathroom 10 minutes later and wait because I knew it was coming. That was such an awful time in my life. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. Answer: something similar happened to 2E-2. I tried to suppress all the pain after my breakup, and within 15 days, my entire body broke out in painful, itchy hives. I should release the frustration and sadness, but instead I bottled everything up and ended up harming myself. Later, it led me into another unhealthy situation, simply because I never processed my emotions. It's heartbreaking how, when a relationship ends, the person who was emotionally invested suffers the most, while the one who wasn't attached walks away unaffected. Story 2. He always did this thing where he'd take the last granola bar and leave an empty box in the pantry. So I emptied out every single thing in the pantry and fridge and left the empty containers down to the spices and flour bags. Eat shoot, Brandon. I also put glitter on his ceiling fans. Ha ha ha. Answer: my ex cheated on me. Before I knew he was cheating, he gave me some BS about needing space. I was an idiot and believed him. Went to go stay with a friend for a week, had the feeling something was up, got him on the phone, drove back to our place while he was on the phone with me. Came in the front door, straight to the bedroom. Yep, he had this slut in my bed. Tried to attack that meanie with my bare hands. He picked me up, carried me outside, and locked the door behind me. Went back a few days later while he was out. Packed up all my stuff. Had everything in my name shut off. His cell phone, utilities, etc. Found leftover salmon he cooked for his slut in the fridge. Hid it behind the couch, which sat under a skylight. Left and never looked back. Story 3. I didn't key his car or anything, but I did aggressively heal. I blocked him everywhere, went to the gym like it was my job, got bangs, started therapy, and became so mentally and physically stable that if he saw me now, he'd probably think I was doing it out of spite. Story 4. Not exactly unhinged, but I was planning on treating him and his younger brother to the movies when he broke up with me by text. I literally glazed the text and left my house and drove myself to the movies and saw the movie by myself. I then sat in the car and cried. Story 5. High school. Drove tipsy to go to their house to beg them to take me back. Got halfway and realized how fudge crazy that is, both driving tipsy and expecting any kind of positive reaction from my ex at 1 a.m. from tipsy me showing up at their house. Drove home. Woke up the next morning and was terrified that I barely remember driving at all and haven't driven tipsy since and never will again. Think it was like 15 years ago. Story 6. Cut off my afro, got a zero cut up all the way up, back and sides, and left a little on top. Rocked that for a few years until my barber, whose salon looked after my mom and sister, referred to it as the clit cut. Mom had told him she thought I looked like a clitoris. Grew the curls back out after that. Story 7. Ex-wife cheated for 2 years with my best friend, married almost 30, and then started saying I should go and have experiences myself, trying to absolve herself. I don't think she thought I could pull, as I'd never strayed or even expressed interest in anyone else during our entire marriage. So on our wedding anniversary, 1.5 months after the affair came out, and sick of her almost goading me into sowing my own wild oats, thinking I had no game, I asked her if she was really sure this was what she wanted, and she said yes and gave me a pass. The next night, my friends were having a party, and I made sure a woman from that group who I'd felt a mutual vibe with, but never expressed or acted on because I was married, was going. My friends had told her that me and my wife had split, and she said she was keen. She turned up, and I had a wonderful time with her, with lots of intimacy and affection along with the intimacy. Second only woman I'd ever slept with. Turned out my wife wasn't so immune to jealousy when I was out playing instead of her. Note: random revenge intimacy isn't the healthiest way of dealing with a cheating a partner, but when you're reeling from the trauma of it, well, it's a thing. Story 8. Once I found out my ex was cheating on me with her married coworker, I told her that if her new boyfriend didn't tell his pregnant wife that they'd been hooking up, that I would. She claimed he told her, and I knew she was lying. I reached out to the wife, she had no idea, and immediately kicked her husband out of the house. Story 9. Laid on my floor the entire day. She was my first ever love, and our official breakup was her calling to me she had slept with someone else. After bawling my eyes out for a very long time, I crawled into bed. Over the next few months, I leaned ever more heavily into alcoholism until my life was completely destroyed. Story 10. Pretended to be sympathetic when she had problems with her new BF. Even drove her to the station and helped her file charges for domestic violence. I spent a whole year acting friendly while keeping receipts. Used it all against her in custody. Edit, we divorced because she cheated. Then she went off the rails with substances and partying. She was an unfit mother, and I did what I had to do to prove it. It worked. Call me Satan if you want. I won. Edit 2. Someone replied to me in this thread, found Satan. I don't feel bad for anything I did. It was way worse than the few things I've described here. Answer. As a child of a piece of shit mom, thank you so much for getting them out of that situation. Most dads wouldn't do what you did, and trust me, they will be grateful for this no matter what. I'm forever grateful in a daddy's girl because he worked his jerk off to get custody of my sister and I. It was a custody battle in different states, so that's what made it even more difficult. Story 11. Almost drank myself to passing. A GF and friend stabbed me in the back. My friend I had known for 15 plus years, and we started a two-piece band together. I started seeing this lady, and we were together for 6 years. I thought she was the one that I'd spend my life with. She ended up fudge my friend, bandmate 2X. I was beyond devastated. All my definitions of love, trust, friends, relationships were shattered. So I moved to Ohio from NC to start a new chapter. I had no support system and kept drinking. Always a cheerful, tipsy, never mean or violent. I met a lady near Cleveland who was really into me. Wanted to marry, maybe a child. Her family really loved me, but I was too wrapped up in my self-loathing, self-fulfilling drunken prophecies, and ruined a truly great and wonderful love. We parted ways and moved back to NC over a year later, only to return to be diagnosed with stage 3 cirrhosis with ascites and walking that fine line of needing a liver transplant. Thankfully, I recovered somewhat that no new liver was needed. Story 12. Not exactly a breakup, and not exactly immediately after. I lost my wife suddenly and without warning. A good friend of ours was very comforting. No, not in that way. And within a couple months, we were getting very close and eventually talked about marriage. As I slowly came to my senses, I began to realize this was a terrible, horrible idea. She was not entirely emotionally stable, and though she loved my daughter, she disliked my son. I broke off our relationship. When she told me that I'd never find anyone else, all my feelings of guilt over the split were lifted, as I realized I'd made the right decision. About a year and a half later, I met the right person. Story 13. My boyfriend at the time wanted to see other people. I slept with an ex soon after, partly to see if it would make him jealous. He took it as a cue to dump me for the girl he wanted to hook up with in the first place. We were 23. They had 4 kids eventually. Story 14. Purchased a round-the-world plane ticket leaving in 2 weeks' time and went for a wander for 18 months after a couple of very questionable relationship choices. Best thing I've ever done. Saw the most beautiful places, met wonderful people, and learned a lot about myself and what I wanted. Would highly recommend if you can do it. Story 15. My ex got my name tattooed. He said it's stupid to get your partner's name tattooed because what if you break up? But we had already broken up, and he knew even if we never saw each other again, I would always be a big part of his story. We had been best friends before being a couple. We got back together. A couple years later, we got married. 8 years later, we mutually decided we were better as best friends, and we divorced. It's been 10 years since the divorce, and he is still my best friend. My husband and I attended his wedding this year. I have no idea if he still has the tattoo, because it's none of my business what he has under his clothes. Leg, not somewhere risky, but I know that at least for the first years of their relationship, his wife was fine with it. She also believes that it's an important part of his life story and what made him who he is, and there is no point in erasing the past. Story 16. After every breakup, I alter something about my appearance so that I feel like a different person and not the person whose heart they broke. After my last breakup, I decided to get my nipples tattooed. Cute little bat wings. No regurts. Made me feel better, and I love looking at myself now. Story 17. Drank half a bottle of gin, practically straight with a hint of lemonade. Ended up vomiting into a trash bag from all the gin, sobbed into said bag, and did I forget to mention I was posting sad stories on my private story that she could still see. She responded to a few talking more about the breakup, and that made me throw up even more. Luckily, I never responded at all to the messages. Writing all that out made me physically recoil. Never again. Story 18. Tried to get pregnant by going off birth control and then having intimacy with him. I genuinely have no idea what the fudge I was thinking. It just felt like the only way we'd get back together, and I felt absolutely insane. I was the one who broke it off. Ironically, we are dating again, had a 9-month break, then moved back in together. Since bought a house and got engaged, have 2 dogs, and I don't want children or be pregnant ever. Story 19. Okay, buckle in. This is going to be a long one. I flew to the new city he was living in that I'd never previously been to, showed up at his doorstep. He was working in this city with an old childhood friend who gave me his address, lol. In my head and to my friends and family who knew our story, everyone was so supportive and OMG, it's like a Lifetime movie. Go get your man. We had broken up the year before to find ourselves. And we both would reach out randomly through those years to catch up, and we would mention how we hadn't ever felt what we once had. So when I decided to visit him, I had just accepted a job in another country and wanted to let him know I was still holding on to our love and the door would be open if he ever wanted to try again. But I needed him to see me, not just keep hearing me say these things from thousands of miles away. But when I stood at his front door, I immediately felt regret. I wanted the earth to eat me up into the dirt and spit me back into my home. I felt like a psychotic ex-girlfriend who found his address and stalked him. I was too scared to even knock. Anyways, while I'm standing outside his door, contemplating turning around, he was literally getting to the building, turning the corner, and boom, he sees me. I'm standing in front of his door on the second floor of his apartment building, utter shock on his face. My insides tightening with discomfort and regret, feeling shy and kind of crazy. After stopping in his tracks, he comes up the stairs. He immediately questioned how or why I ended up on his doorstep. I pathetically and embarrassingly answered, I had a layover. Neither of us were living in our hometown at the time, and it was holiday season, so it sounded plausible. He invited me in, and from one moment it was shock and numbness to seeing each other again after so long, to home, comfort, and no loss of time. We are married now. And he always tells me that me making that move was a huge step to bringing us where we are today. I got my happy ending. So kind of like real Lifetime movie stuff. Ha ha ha. I don't regret it. Story 20. I'm not judging, but reading these replies has made me more grateful than ever to be asexual, aromantic. I just can't fathom ever feeling something so intensely and doing all that. Edit, I changed my mind. I read more comments. I'm judging some of you. Hard. Story 21. He was awful and divulged ways he was mentally abusing me, so I lost it and cut all of his clothes in half and banged a bunch of dudes. It worked, though. I felt a lot better. I have since divorced him, remarried, and my life is very good with my husband, kids, and stable income. Story 22. Am not willing to say the most unhinged thing I've done after a breakup, but it'll give you the second most unhinged thing. I went over to his new girlfriend's house, where he lived, while she was out of town for the night, and I banged him on every weight-bearing surface in her house. I had broken up with him, and honestly, I didn't even like him. I was 20 and still years away from walking into a proper therapist's office. Story 23. I came to Australia on a student visa for 3 months, while my ex was doing a course himself. We were together for 11 years. Mind you, he helped pack my bags, took me to the airport, made 101 promises how after I got back, we would finally start the wedding plans that we kept postponing. Barely 2 weeks after being abroad, I found out that he had been cheating on me with a girl nearly half my age for over a year. She thought I was a crazy ex that didn't want to leave him alone. I found out his dad and brother knew all about them. His mother was mortified. The Australian couple that took me in for my trip had a friend that they kept insisting I should go out with since I got here. And I always had said no because fiance back home, yada yada. Well, a week of crying and pitying myself, I thought of those two and decided to go out with the guy. 2 months later, I extended my visa for a longer course. Been now married for 10 years. Story 24. Took my first solo trip across the country via train in order to work in the remote backcountry of the Rockies for a summer. Immediately hooked up with a close friend when I returned. That didn't last. I did, however, return with an existential crisis brought on by realizing that I would rather work low-paying jobs and sleep under the stars than set foot in a traditional workplace ever again. Perfect timing for the national parks to get defunded. Story 25. I took his work uniforms and most of his t-shirts and used a seam ripper to rip up a stitch every few stitches. Not so many that it'd be obvious, but enough that enough stretching and washing would make the seam give up after 1-2 months. He was a big guy, 195 centimeters tall. I am 158 centimeters, and he threatened to beat the baby out of my belly because I was crying, not knowing if I wanted an abortion or not. He also hit me in the ribs and a lot of psychological terror. Because he was that big, he had to buy his clothes at special stores, and the t-shirt ranged at around $50 per shirt. It wasn't a big enough revenge, but I knew I cost him about $300 having to change his wardrobe. I showed him for making fun of my love for handcrafting, that miserable fudge. Story 26. I didn't do the most unhinged thing, but it happened to me. Not my reaction to it, but the fact that she did it. I am a very calm man who can regulate my emotions really well with breathing methods. I was 30M dating a 24F. After 6 months, I broke it off cause of her immaturity, but I did it in a good way, IMO. I wasn't mean to her, I just said that it won't work out. We had met at the workplace, and a month after we met, I switched jobs. There was this Russian guy that I would sometimes talk to there. In her mind, she thought that he and I were best friends for some reason. I have no idea why. I hadn't spoken to him for 5 months after I quit the work. When I broke up with her, she called me 2 weeks after to tell me that she had to admit that she made a mistake. They were at an after party with the workplace, and they went to her place and had intimacy. She came to my place to tell me this in person, and my reaction to it absolutely broke her. I couldn't have cared less. I totally expected stuff like that from her, which is why I broke up in the first place. She had suffered huge trauma. She had been violated by her father and other stuff. It's not the reason why I broke it off. I knew about that from the start. She just couldn't regulate her emotions in any way, shape, or form, and I did my best to try and make it out. But when she told me she had slept with Ian and she saw that I was kind of shrugging like, all right, she started explaining why, yeah, I don't know, we were tipsy and I know you and him are like best friends. And I interrupted her there. Hold on, what do you mean best friends? I barely know the guy. I haven't spoken to him for 5 months. And that's when she broke. The shock on her face when she realized that she got fudged by a person she doesn't even like to try and get back at me. And it backfired in the worst way possible. She was devastated. To the point where I had to console her Lowell. I couldn't believe that I was doing it considering what she had done and the fact that she believed we were best friends even if we weren't. She was aiming to hurt me and I was actually trying to make her feel better. After consoling her for a few minutes, I told her straight up, this is on you. God punished you for doing this when I have been nothing but nice to you. I frankly don't care, and you know it. But the problem is that you were hoping that I would care, and you wanted to hurt me for no reason at all. I personally won't forgive you because there is nothing to forgive. This action doesn't mean anything to me. You have to learn to forgive yourself because the only person you hurt here is you, and these are the reason why we broke up. Then I drove her home, gave her a hug, and wished her nothing but the best. Frankly, it's one of those moments where I am quite proud of myself and how I handled that situation, and even more so, how I could easily keep my emotions in check and not take this personally. Because at the end of the day, it was not about me, it was about her. Story 27. The only time I had someone break up with me, I stalked them for months. I showed up where they worked, mall store. I showed up at their favorite bar when they did. I joined his gym. I called and hung up the phone almost daily just to hear his voice. The whole thing was a little unhinged and I was only 19, so I really was just caught up in the emotion of it. I'm not sure if he knew I was actively stalking him, but it's not like he asked me to stop. Story 28. I just got broken up with by the love of my life. She told me she didn't want to be with me anymore, so I drank 2 bottles of wine. She came back home on her lunch break to apologize, but I had already drank the wine. I told my friend I wanted to shoot myself. He told me to call her and tell her to get my gun. So I did. I have no idea what I will get when she comes home. Can anybody help me? I really need help. I heard a lot. I need help. Will someone talk to me, please? I called the Tragic End hotline, but I got stuck on hold. My only safe place is a bottle. Please help. I don't want to give up. Answer, don't give up. Keep fighting. There's a you in the future that's happy and settled, and he needs you to fight for him to get through this. Stop drinking. Go get some sleep. Tomorrow when you wake up, go do a puzzle or a Lego, something that will occupy your mind and your hands. The next day, when you've recovered from the booze, try to get outside for some exercise. Take it day by day, but keep fighting. Story 29. Planned to win her back picnic, but hooked up with a mutual friend the night before and sort of canceled half-assed the picnic. Didn't win her back. We lived in separate cities roughly 2 hours from each other during the last year of our relationship and when we broke up. A month after the breakup, we were going to meet up to talk about stuff. I decided to try and win her back with an elaborate romantic picnic. Went to her city, was going to spend the night on a friend's couch. The mutual friend DM'd me about something completely unrelated. I told her of the breakup and that I was in town. She invited me over for crying and ice cream. Hadn't been there more than 30 minutes before a comforting hug turned into more. Next day, my heart wasn't really in the romantic picnic anymore. Go figure, huh? Still went through with it, and to Noon's surprise, it didn't work. Story 30. The day after said breakup, my dad and I were going over to the ex's house to move my stuff out while he was at work. A poor chipmunk found its way into my parents' pool overnight and was floating dead in the pool. We got it out and put it in my ex's attic when we went over there to move my stuff out. Never spoke to him again, but I hope it stunk up the place and he went through the trouble of calling pest control. Story 31. I was in middle school and we were both still closeted. semi-closeted in my case. My parents could tell I just hadn't told them yet. And we dated for all of a week in 7th grade. He told me never to speak of it again, and we remained friends. But the amount of unsent love letters I wrote to him for the remainder of the school year was absurd. Like any time I had free time in class. In 7th grade science class, we each had drawers for our notebooks. My drawer had multiple of these handwritten letters begging him to take me back stacked neatly beneath my notebook. I dodged a bullet, though, because he never really matured past middle school and had a pathological need to overshare the absolutely sordid things that he found hot, no matter if his audience voiced discomfort or not. By the time I quietly stepped out of his life 2 years ago, I was wondering why I was obsessed with him in middle school. Story 32. Went on a substance and booze-infused bender for a couple of months. Must have spent at least 3-4 months couch hopping and non-stop partying. Had a couple of one-night stands and got my first and only STD in that period. Not proud of it, but I guess I needed it. Story 33. Sent him to jail for stalking me. He was charged with a felony, but I kindly agreed to a plea agreement to keep his sentence under 1 year. He had substances charges as well. He did not deserve the kindness, but thankfully, despite no longer having his ankle monitor, I haven't heard from him in years. Story 34. Made a PowerPoint slideshow where I used Microsoft Paint to depict a story of someone dying and turning into a zombie. On Sunday, set to Paramore's Never Let This Go. I was really into PowerPoint at 15-16, and it was my first breakup. I did feel better afterward, though. Story 35. Stalked him and the girl he cheated on me with so hard, I found their Reddit accounts and have slowly been observing the crumbling of their relationship through their posts and comments while being in full no contact for over a year. They're currently broken up and miserable. You know what? Sucks to suck. Story 36. I had her MySpace password and I changed it, but I did it with my eyes closed so I wouldn't know it either. I knew we had to enter it twice so I couldn't just mash buttons, but I closed my eyes and did a random combination and then did it again, and it worked. Sorry, Chelsea. Story 37. Drove an hour and a half away from the city and onto a FSR in my dinky little sedan and camped out in the middle of winter 5 kilometers deep into the forest on a pullout. Now that I think of it, I could have easily gotten a flat or mauled by a bear or something, and I would have been fudged with no service. Just felt like I had to get away from it all. Story 38. Booked a last-minute flight to NYC via London, cost me a fortune. Spent a week in a city I'd never been to in my life, and it should have been a great experience with plenty to take my mind off her. Spent it depressed and unable to focus on anything. Plot twist cheese, now my wife. Story 39. Still mulling it over. Do I just fade away or do I send all the screenshots, chats, private pictures, and evidence of our relationship to their spouse that they don't know I have? Worth the flip of a coin or a tarot card pull, LOL. I'll probably just let it slide, LOL. Story 40. I was the recipient of unhinged behavior. We were not compatible. It was an age gap. He expected me to give up my core beliefs. The morning after I woke up to him trying to put himself in me, I left. The next morning, I awoke to a passing threat placed in my mailbox. He would write daily and unhinged letters, tipsy AF, threatening to burn down my house, have people attack me. I needed to watch myself in town, then drive to deliver them to my mailbox. Upon learning that what he was doing was illegal, he began mailing these novellas of threats and insults. I still randomly laugh at decreased female body part. He wasn't getting laid as often as he wanted. Then he started talking about pictures. His grown son received intimate photos of myself, except I didn't know anything about it, and I had no idea any pictures were intimate. These pictures began featuring heavily in the letters, as though he was now entitled to be scorched earth, despite he is who had those pictures out in the first place. The pictures were part of my conversation with ex and late husband. Now, my ex swore he didn't have my old phone, but he went to Homeland Security, our state's Fish and Game, the Welfare Office, CPS 8, and the feds, telling them my intimate photos were illegal phone adult content, had a phone with old pictures on it, so he did have it. The feds were not amused with their time partied too hard on petty, vindictive behavior. He also started trouble by having his adult daughter and grown granddaughter calling what I speculate are welfare checks on meth heads. The grown daughter and granddaughter would go to the place my kid's dad worked and intimidate my child. 5 years of this BS, this man was greatly beloved and adored a member of the community. The BS stopped and he had been arrested for SODROMI charges against a minor under 13. I wish the conviction had been locally, but our area is pretty wrist-slappy towards P3D bureaus. He also lied about the dog his grown daughter gave me, claiming his grandchildren and great-grandchildren had cancer, and I had stolen the beloved family pet. They'd practically shoved the dog on me. Story 41. I commented, but it got removed. I told him I didn't want to see him, and I highly recommend moving out because I know for a fact we would see each other and it would be embarrassing. There, mods, I watered it down for you. What he did to me. Sent his affair partner to cough on me so I would be debilitated and unable to catch them together, and posted about it. Why would you tell people you did that? Still have permanent problems with my immune system. Basically, I got him to break his lease way early and he lost money out of it. Story 42. I had most of the furniture in his apartment repossessed. The whole bedroom suite, the couch, and the coffee table. It was a pretty small apartment. It was all financed in my name and I refused to pay for it, and I was not in a place to take it anywhere with me. Story 43. I had a horrible breakup with someone I thought I loved, so my first reaction was to have revenge intimacy with someone I sometime later became friends with, multiple times for months. That helped me deal with the anger I was going through and eventually made me realize I hadn't really been in love. This friend later became my life partner and the mother of my 2 daughters. We're still together after almost 15 years. Story 44. We'd been cast in a Christmas show together before the breakup. She thought it'd be better to tell me a week before rehearsal started, and it was too late to leave the show in a professional manner. So I stayed in the contract for the next month and a half, sharing a bedroom in an Airbnb with my ex. Story 45. I fudged his best friend. They were also fighting at the time, so it just felt right. This was senior year of HS in almost 20 years. He didn't find out till years later. He seemed cool about it since he was a bit of a jerk to me at the end of our relationship and apologized for it. I haven't spoken to his friend since the day, so nothing came from that. Story 46. Met up and talked with the chick he cheated on me with. She didn't know he had a fiance. We drank 4 lattes each and then proceeded to go to the house where him and I lived. I moved out the week before, and I took back the gifts I had just bought him for Christmas while he was at work. He hadn't changed any codes or locks yet. Absolutely wild and shocked I did that, but fudge him. Story 47. Continued to log into his Netflix account. When he noticed I kept watching Dexter, he changed the password. I correctly guessed his new password, logged into his Facebook account and read his messages. In there, I found a picture of his back covered in marks. I had heard he was really into being whipped. Walked to his house unannounced. Story 48. Downloaded a dating app literally a day later, flirted and gaslit a lot of people, hooked up with some, and at the end, I'd always find a random reason to tell them, yeah, I just don't want anything serious. Bye. Constantly walking through the streets, drinking, cut off all my friendships. I also was high 247. Story 49. The guy was in the Air Force, and turns out he had a wife and kids. I contacted the wife, submitted hundreds of screenshots, photos, and even wrote a statement for her lawyer to use in divorce proceedings. I also reported him to the colonel. Dad had some connections, as infidelity is a seriously punishable offense in the armed forces. I took a solo trip to Cabo, Mexico, and spent 5 days alone on the beach. Then I went to Las Vegas with my best friend and got a tattoo. Honestly, it healed me. Story 50. Got in touch with a guy that I had known growing up, got engaged in 2 months, got married a bit after that, got pregnant 2 months after that, left him when the baby was maybe 4 months old. Later learned I have bipolar disorder. I have a tendency to quickly make extremely life-altering decisions that I will regret almost immediately. I'm stable now on meds and happily married for 3 years, but younger me was a whole train wreck. Story 51. Got into a new relationship less than a month later and married that man after 3 years together. To be fair, I did tell him all I wanted was a FWB, but we got along so well that we were basically attached at the hip. Our son turns 3 next month after Christmas, and we'll be celebrating our 5-year wedding anniversary. So it worked out, lol. Story 52. Not that unhinged, but I took all the spoons, like teaspoons, ladles, etc. included. I don't know why, but I was angry, upset, and everything was falling apart in my life. Parents split up after 25 years of a perfect-seeming marriage. My brother, who was 16, 17 at the time, was starting the shoot show of finding out he had cancer. And the boyfriend at the time basically acted like I was overreacting for being stressed and upset, so I left. Next day, he's got the girl I shouldn't worry about in bed. So anyway, I went to pick up the rest of my belongings a couple of weeks later and got a weird petty rage about everything. So I just took the spoons, and I'd darn well do it again. Story 53. So many of these seem to be revenge and spite-driven. Am I the only one who caves inwards? Took a flight to Indonesia to meet a therapist man I had found online who deals with attachment issues, pushed every single person who cares about me away, quit all meat, substances, and adult beverage. Drove to her mom's house 4 hours each way, some nights after work. I would just drive past once like a circuit and head back. Stop paying bills, had my power cut, and just lived like that. Dislike myself to a dangerous degree. Beyond depression, anxiety. Had my first one-night stand. Dislike that too. See about 3 therapists. I don't even feel like myself anymore, or like anything is real. On the positives, I befriended a woman who went through something similar. She's very kind and is also a model, which is cool. We are FWB now in the true sense. She is one of my closest friends, and I don't even really enjoy sleeping with her that much. But she's of a different culture, and learning about that makes my time here feel small in a good way. Started making music. In the end, everything feels pointless, but I do feel better. Story 54. I was ghosted months into a relationship. Months later, he got in contact with me and asked to meet up at a restaurant to talk. He didn't have a car, but he lives downtown. I picked a restaurant on the opposite side of downtown from his house and asked him to meet there. It didn't seem suspicious because the restaurant was halfway between his house and my house. The day and time of the meeting, I kept telling him I was on my way, but running late for various reasons. I never left my house, and I ghosted him once he told me he walked all the way to the restaurant and was now waiting. If you waste my time, I will waste yours. He ended up finding me on a social that I forgot to block him on and said it was funny as hell but was butthurt at the same time. Story 55. Not me, but a coworker I had back in high school was taken out of the store by police because she purposefully T-boned the guy's car. His house was directly in front of a T intersection, and his car was parked right at the end of the perpendicular street. She acted like it was funny when she told us earlier in the shift. Psycho. Story 56. Went to Vegas, blew all my money besides 40 in 3 days of a week-long stay, went to strip club with my last 40 dressed as Abraham Lincoln, picked up a stripper while dressed as Abraham Lincoln and no money to my name, spent last 3 days with her partying and missed my flight. So 4 days, 2 weeks later, had her come visit me in FL, asked her to stay, and got into a relationship with said stripper. And that's where my username comes from. Story 57. I don't know that it ended up being Unhinged, I admit, but after a breakup, I went to the movie theater alone. After the movie, I backed into someone's car while leaving. There was no damage on either car, but it happened right as these 2 veiny gym bros were heading to their car, the one I had backed into. They were trying to do that posturing thing where they make themselves tall, scrunch their faces, eye me up and down, and make hypothetical threats that trail off into nothing. If there's even a scratch, I was making a Sherlock Holmes plan in my head where I discombobulate them 20 times each before I run away. But they luckily never decided to rough me up. I just drove off while they were inspecting the lack of damage for the 5th minute straight. Story 58. Threw my dog's poop on the hood of his car. TBF, he moved a block away 2 weeks after we broke up. Like, why? I was kind of buzzed with my dog and just walking by and saw his car parked there. It was in a bag, but it was still immature. I didn't really think about it. It was just a natural reaction fling. Like 10 feet past the car, I was like, why the F did I do that? He probably knows it was me. Oh, well. Story 59. Sent the messages, screenshots, of her confirming that she cheated on me with 7 guys in 6 months to a bunch of group chats that it contained most of the students in our year. That was 18 years ago, and if I remember correctly, her reputation was never the same. I am petty, I hold grudges, and I owe no one forgiveness. Story 60. My hair was down to just above my bum. I got it slashed to a bob and I dyed it brown from black. FYI, last time I had it as a bob was when I was young with that Asian bowl cut and am in my late 20s. I only kept it long because X liked it, and I had never dyed my hair up until this point either. Story 61. His uncooked prawns in his house while he was at work when I went to collect my things. He dumped me via text after sleeping with me the night before edit. I also gave an ex a black eye after he told me he was glad I miscarried my twins. He was the dad. In front of all his friends in the pub, they ditched him. I wasn't thinking straight, no charges pressed. Story 62. I sold everything and went to Micronesia. As a child, I read in a cartoon, Donald Duck, that was the most remote place on the planet. Here I found a deserted island, snorkeled for an hour, and then I just kept traveling east until I arrived back home again. I literally went around the globe. It was an expensive breakup. Story 63. Not what I did, but my ex drove 12 hours to my apartment to try and convince me to rescind the breakup. The relationship turned long distance, and it was very one-sided. It was one of the few times she actually made the drive herself. Oh, and it was completely unannounced. She just showed up. Story 64. Drive 8 hours to meet up with him at a hotel hangout. He was aving with friends. I left at 6 p.m. and got there at 2 a.m. I stayed for a weekend and then left at 6 a.m., drove 7-ish hours back, and then worked a 4-hour shift at my job. This was maybe 4 days after the breakup. He was pretty happy to see me, surprisingly. Story 65. Girlfriend left me for a different guy. I assume she cheated on me as well because, oh, how the situation crumbled. I ended up driving to the guy's house while she was there at like 3 a.m. and sat outside contemplating what I was going to do to them. I ended up sobering up once I realized how psychotic I was acting and went home. A lot of adult beverage. Ended up hooking up with what felt like the entire city for like a year. I'm pretty sure I broke a lot of hearts, and I feel bad about that now. So many potential relationships I could have had, but fumbled because I was too hurt to really move on from what happened. I am way better now. Story 66. ADK, if we had really done, which means we were deaf done, and I decided to bring something over to her place that night as a surprise since she said she wasn't doing anything that night. It was pretty late when I got there and she was not home. Car gone. I just sat there and cried all night, and on the way home, I left the thing at the door. She flipped the fudge out about that. I knew she was seeing someone else, and that was basically the proof. Story 67. We were in class, and I don't remember why, but a lot of people were sitting on the ground. The rows of desks were tight. I got called somewhere. My ex was sitting on the ground in front of me with desks to both sides. I got the fudge dumbass idea to jump over her instead of asking her to move. Laughing as I did so. I was going for leapfrog, I swear. Like my dumbass thought, leapfrog time, no biggie, woohoo! Looking back on it, I absolutely accidentally teabagged the shoot out of my ex right after we broke up. Guys, I swear I'm a dumbass. I swear it was supposed to be funny. I had no intention on teabagging anyone at all, ever. Story 68. Whoa, that's a brutal question, but honestly, breakups can make people do crazy stuff. And sometimes it's just part of healing. I once went full Marie Kondo on our shared apartment. I ripped down all the photos, threw out or donated anything that reminded me of them, and redecorated everything just to make sure there was nothing left to tie me back to the past. It felt like reclaiming my space and my identity. Today, I don't totally regret it. Even though it was over the top, it was cathartic. And looking back, I guess the unhinged version of me was just trying to figure out how to start over clean. Story 69. I did a lot of dumb shoot after breakups. Senior year of high school, I was dating this girl. Same age. We dated for a few weeks. I got the wrong impression. I thought she wanted to be in a relationship. Well, we went to a house party a few weeks later, and she started being flirty or kissing another guy there. I was pissed and drove her home. I got revenge by asking out one of her friend's classmates. That blew up in my face too. Anyway, this first girl was decent enough to be my date to my prom a few months later. Turns out she was just hypersexual. I had my first real girlfriend in college. It lasted about 6-7 months. We broke up when, at a house party, she sat on another guy's lap and got fresh with him. I went on to get in really good physical shape, but at the price of starving myself. I dropped 30 pounds. I was obsessed with her. Made her my desktop wallpaper on college computers. Sadness, grief. Also, I experienced intimacy dysfunction a few months after we broke up. I went to a local strip club to see if my male body part was completely dead at 21 years old. It was my first time ever at a strip club. After hanging out for a little bit, I bought a lap dance. My college town hometown was a blue-collar, small city. Everyone works hard here, including the strippers giving private dances. It turns out that I did not actually have erectile dysfunction. The woman who did legitimately ruin my life was with me for about 3 years, 2011 to 2014. I still have not recovered, despite therapy and meds. I guess my unhinged behavior after breaking up was trying to replace her with another woman. I found someone else quickly, a great, beautiful lady. This replacement lady and I were together for quite some time, but we didn't end up together. There were 2 women who dumped me. The relationships were short, but my unhingedness from the breakups was sad Facebook posts and hypersexuality. The time between the end of a relationship with woman A and the beginning of a relationship with woman B was less than 5 months. I hooked up with a woman between them, and after woman B dumped me, I hooked up with 3 different women in 4 weeks. Story 70. It wasn't a breakup. I'm still married, but I went to his AP's public Facebook profile and laid it all out. Of course, all her friends and family stood up for her, but I still don't regret a thing. I was 25 and just had my first baby, had a few too many beers, and wanted some justice. I found out it was a silent justice later, but it'll still take it. Publicly, they defended her, but out of the public eye, it was just chaos. She lost a lot of friends and had to deactivate her FB account. She also hooked up with our, at the time, roommate till we kicked his jerk out, too. Story 71. I contacted my ex's new boyfriend who she decided to start dating a day after our breakup. Much MySpace shoot-talking tone ensued. We agreed to meet up at the skate park next to the high school to talk shoot in person. I came with a bunch of my buds. He came with a bunch of his buds. Apparently, both of us had numbers in mind. Turned into an all-out brawl. My friends had more experience in scuffles. They got a bit butthurt after their hospital visits, and I got arrested in the middle of science class the next day. Due to hearsay, they let me go. But in the interview room, they had a picture of me on the wall where I was at a 7-Eleven. And that's how I figured out I was being investigated for substances dealing at the time. Didn't think they knew, but they played their cards by not pulling that picture off the wall before they investigated me for something unrelated. Immediately got out of that world. Got sober, got married, had a family, and life is well and free of drama and riffraff. Thanks, Lucas, for snitching. Changed my life. Story 72. Went full Sherlock Holmes for a few weeks. She had been cheating on me while I was elsewhere for work, and I wanted to find out if any of our friends knew what was going on but didn't tell me. So I interrogated, really just had one-on-one conversations with 5 or 6 people, asking them to tell me what happened from their perspectives. Turned out that she'd been telling different people all sorts of different things, ranging from nothing's happening to he knows and said it's okay, to he's into it and asked me to cheat on him. It really helped me reestablish a foundation of trust in a time where my sense of trust was completely upended. I also cornered the guy she cheated on me with in the laundry room and spoiled something from his favorite anime, which might have been more Unhinged. Story 73. Slept with, dated the president of his fraternity. The ex had a huge ego and partially dumped me BC. I didn't fit his idealistic style. The other part was BC. I was an independent woman who didn't agree with traditional values. After that news came out, he was pissed. So I dated the guy that he was most jealous of at our college gym. I actually liked that one, and we were together for 2 years. I've since grown out of my petty ways, but now he's balding and I'm married. Karma wins eventually. Story 74. Made an alternate personality and had a good time. I was 18 when I met my ex-husband in college. I had been through a lot. He was older and saw someone he could control. We had some good times, but I missed out on a lot of life. Fast forward many years, he had really hurt my mental health. Lots of manipulation and making me feel like I wasn't good enough. Then his affair and our divorce. I was really devastated, but then realized I could try dating for the first time as an adult. First time in the age of dating apps. I used the name of my great-great-grandmother. It was great time. Story 75. I watched 600 episodes of One Piece. I always wanted to watch it, but my partner at the time kept holding me back from it since we watched it together, but he never wanted to watch. So when we broke up, I watched so much One Piece. After going on dating apps for a while and binging One Piece every time something didn't work out, 100 partish episodes, I've successfully caught up to the anime 1250 episodes. Story 76. She was a doctor. We always were in a LDR. 2.5 years long went down the drain once she joined her PG college. Schedules got hectic for her, and we didn't talk much. Things started getting bad when she used to go out for drinks with people I didn't know. Once she forgot her cell phone at the club, and second time she didn't even bother to inform me what time she will be back, and called me next day. It was mentally exhausting for me. She clearly loved male attention. I had made my mind for a breakup 2 or 3 months before. Broke up in September, went on a vacation for 1 week, felt better. Sadly, all my breakup happened in September. Awful time. Story 77. I got in the best shape of my life. Like I was 19 and went way overboard in the gym. Like to an unhealthy level. Always been kind of pudgy. Spent that summer at the beach making sure word got around that I looked great, so should feel terrible. Was so depressed that super hot girls were hitting on me and I'd walk away. Then a local beauty pageant girl liked me and my friends slapped sense into me. Oh boy, did that help. Story 78. Oh, Lord. Backstory, we had been married for 3 weeks and I was 8 weeks pregnant when he started cheating. I might have lost my mind for a bit. Had a friend pretend to be someone else and message him on Yahoo Chat. This was 20 years ago, to hook up. He drove to meet her and she wasn't there. Called every single number on his phone bill and asked every woman that answered if they knew he was married with a baby on the way. They didn't. Ended up talking to one husband and his CO. That was a fun conversation. Story 79. We had drifted apart, but I still cared about her. So I stayed on the sinking ship. I had already gotten back into fantastic shape, so by the time she said she was dating someone else, I easily blocked her and moved on. I then went to get faded at every rave and music festival I could for 2 years. Awesome times, lol. Story 80. I admittedly have been harassing and crashing out on my ex-boyfriend for the past 4 months. In my defense, He put me through vitriolic, misogynistic, emotional, and mental abuse for 4 months straight and completely took advantage of me and currently owes me $2,000. He is also a predator and tried to coerce me into sucking his male body part. The last time we saw each other, after trying to make me feel crazy when I say that he is completely abusive and psychotic, that is not an understatement. Story 81. Told her she could keep the dog, then drove tipsy over to her house and broke in with my key and demanded the dog back. To be sober and attempt to be stable and hold the fear in her eyes in my head as a good reason to never drink again. I'm a small woman but a scary tipsy. Story 82. I have to make this clear because it's embarrassing to admit I'm not proud of this. And the version of me who did this has come a very long way and would never do this again. But I logged into their email account and Facebook account, changed the passwords. Then I went into their Facebook Messenger account and messaged or replied to other girls he was talking to, asking them stupid stuff. Like if they have any toilet paper I can borrow because I'm homeless and haven't been able to wipe since I pooped in the woods a few days ago, and asking if they had kids because my intimacy appetite doesn't believe in age discrimination. I messaged a couple of his man friends asking them to keep a secret and meet me at specific hotel and room number and take our friendship to the next level. Just dumb stuff. Story 83. Ran into him in a mall parking lot after he rebuffed me and headed inside the mall. I went to his car and scratched unhinged messages into the paint with my keys, tried and failed to rip his bumper stickers off, and smacked the windshield and side mirrors rather fruitlessly with my umbrellas, several years before Brittany thought of doing it. Looking back, Jesus Christ, I was a mess, and I was lucky he didn't try to press charges against me for vandalism or something. I even had the audacity to apologize and ask if we could be friends again a few years later. He said sure, but he clearly wanted nothing to do with me. I'd like to go back and smack the shoot out of younger me for that. Story 84. Drove 1.5 hours each way to smash many, many times. The commute isn't that unhinged, but the drama coming from her over the following few weeks, me eventually getting fed up, telling her bye forever lose my number, then doing the whole process over again a couple months later, eventually 3 times. 10. Repeating the pattern definitely qualifies as unhinged. Story 85. Well, the day after this dude broke up with me, a friend messaged me to tell me they saw him at this restaurant with another girl. So I got in my car and sped down to the restaurant, walked in, tapped him on the shoulder and said hi. He walked outside claiming up and down she was just a friend. To this day, I still cringe when I think about what I did. I was a little off my rocker. Therapy has since made me a little more sane. Story 86. 5-year relationship with a girl I was planning on proposing to ended. I moved to a new city, rented a dream high-rise apartment, partied like crazy, traveled heavily, both around the country and the world. Probably increased my body count 5-fold. Met a very high-profile celebrity and partied with them in a foreign country. I'm making more money than I ever have in my life. I've experienced things I could only ever dream of and have lived a wilder life in the last 1.5 years since the breakup than I ever thought possible. From the outside, it seems like my life has been a movie since the breakup happened, but inside, I'm still hollow, angry, and lonely. Story 87. Not me, but my ex dated one of my best friends and convinced him that I lied about her cheating on me. They got engaged. He found out she was cheating on him and was pregnant with the guy, 20 years our senior. So she ended 3 relationships, 2 romantic, and one she wasn't involved in that had been going since 6th grade. Story 88. Take your pick. Doxed her on a dating app. Doxed her sister on another dating app. Posted her niece on my socials. I don't count that because that vid was up in January. We broke up in March. They didn't see it till June. Took pics at her granny's grave. Send anniversary gift to mom and stepdad. House, supported her nieces. Dad's tattoo business knowing he was a deadbeat. Wrote a letter to the judge detailing how her sister coerced her into babysitting it. Harassment emails taunting her and local police. This is all in the same relationship. Story 89. Convince myself of an elaborate story of everything she did wrong and I didn't do anything and that she should pay for her crimes and then post it everywhere. I was pretty popular in HS. Everyone believed me and now only a handful of people like her. So